Now, if I was to say what made this week eventful, as you put it at the beginning, it had to be the issue of the conference trying to decide how to maximize the time left for the conference, considering the manner with which, or the procedure with which they're considering the pending report, which has been a thorny issue right from Monday. What do you think is the problem that makes it difficult to agree that there needs to be a change in that procedure?
Yeah, you see, we have different rules, different procedures that we can follow. And our rules allow for almost all of them. Our rules allow any delegate that wants to speak on a matter to submit his name. That is the rule that has been applied to these first 9 committees, so that I put my name to speak on various items, and then they call me in my turn and I speak. The problem is that there are 490 delegates, and we are finding that on some committees, even the ones that are not too popular, those who are seeking to speak are 160. Even if you say 3 minutes each, that's a long time, and that's why we're falling behind. And we haven't even come to those committees where those who want to speak are almost 300. So if you allow every delegate, or say that every delegate has the right to speak on every committee report, then the timetable for the whole assignment goes totally out of whack. So some people recognize that and are saying, hey, we cannot go down this route. It's making us fall behind. So there's a problem that has to be addressed. On the other side, though, you know that as soon as you adopt any other recommendation or compromise that no longer guarantees every delegate a right to speak, many delegates are worried and get frightened, and they think that they'll be marginalized. So they will naturally resist. In any case, in life, it's difficult to give somebody freedom first and then try and claw it back. It's normally easier the other way around, so that if you have started off saying that every delegate cannot speak, and then later on you say, okay, you can all speak, they'll jump for joy. But if they're already used to every delegate who wants to speak being given a chance to speak on any report he wants to speak on, trying to claw it back, it becomes a bit difficult. Now, to claw it back as well, because you know in advance that you are trying to recommend something that is sensible and will help us to meet our time deadline. But if you try and propose those kind of changes, there are some rules you cannot violate. One is that you must consult the people, all the delegates, or the bulk of the delegates, whose right to speak on every matter you are trying to claw back. Okay. So any proposal that is presented without consulting them is almost doomed to fail, because they'll start screaming no, 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 because they're fighting for their rights. The second principle I think I found is that one of our rules actually allows on a subject matter to force all the groupings. Most people, if everybody came to the delegate under a particular heading, a federal government delegate, an Anambra State delegate, labor. So one of our rules actually makes it possible for those groups to nominate one person to speak on their behalf. But having allowed every single delegate to speak so far, whenever it felt like doing so, the delegates don't even want to allow us to use that aspect of our rules, which says that labor leaders, there are 12 of you, let one person get up and speak on your behalf. Because the rest feel that, hey, we've all been talking, so why should we not sit back and allow one person? For all we know, the chairman or president of NLCTUC will grab that slot and they will all be watching him. So therefore, what some of us were proposing was a compromise. Everybody cannot speak all the time. It doesn't make sense. We won't finish our assignments. At the same time, forcing each group to pick only one person to nominate is very restrictive, and people fear and worry, even by our culture. If you say one person is supposed to speak on behalf of the South-South zone, it's difficult for a youth from that zone to be struggling with the most well-known elder from that same zone for that one slot. So what we then proposed by talking to the delegates from all shades, geographical areas, in organizations, age groups, and so on, was that, okay, how about a compromise? Instead of saying everybody speaks, which is one extreme, or one person only speaks for the group, which is the other extreme, how about a compromise? We took roughly the number of delegates under each grouping. If, for argument's sake, there were 30 delegates who came under the grouping of Southeast Zone or states in the Southeast Zone, add them up, there 30. If you divide by 5, get 6 slots. And we said, okay, why don't you people get together and identify 6 people that will speak? So not 1, but 6. And the idea was that because the number of 6 is much larger and 6 people will speak every time, people will feel less threatened that they'll be marginalized all the time. So it was the compromise. And we arrived at that number, or that ratio, of roughly 20% of the number of delegates being given a chance to speak. Because it was arrived at by consultation and negotiation, there's a chance that it might get through. But every such attempt is a difficult sell, because people signed up to it, and that motion was sponsored by 100 delegates. So and I believe it's the first motion to be sponsored by 100 delegates, and not because it was only wanted by 100 people. It was more of, it was symbolic that let people sign up to sponsor it, and once we have 100 delegates, let's submit it to the chairman and vice chairman, because that shows seriousness. That if 100 delegates recommending a compromise, that should save us plenty of time, and they're all willing to sponsor this motion, then let's let the House look at it.
If this does not work, the conference is faced with the prospect of not completing the job.
Well, if this does not work, then the conference is most likely going to encounter a deadlock or a stalemate of some sort. Because with every delegate deciding to speak, we are going to get to mid-July, and every delegate won't have finished speaking on every single item. So that's why this I won't call it final attempt, which is a compromise between, like I said, the two extremes. It's almost like a last chance. Because if the delegates don't agree to compromise and allow 20%, or let's say 6 delegates to speak on behalf of 30, or in some cases 3 on behalf of 15, if they don't buy into that, then there'll be a problem.
We must realize that millions of Nigerians are being discriminated against in various parts of this country, where they are born, where their forefathers lived, based on the so-called state of origin. The founding fathers of Nigeria had a dream of building a united, prosperous, and developed nation state, where social justice reigns. Mr. Chairman, distinguished delegates, I leave you with the words of this Greek proverb: a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. Thank you.
Now, those were the words of Professor Dora Akunyili at her last public speech at the National Conference. Deep words there, deep words indeed. It's on this note that we end the program today. Till we meet again next week, I'm Lanre Lasisi. Bye.